All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Appreciate everyone being here and timely. And John, would you open us in a word of prayer?
Yes, thank you very much. And bow our heads, please. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you on this beautiful day that we're able to gather together. And dear Lord, we pray for your wisdom. We pray for your inspiration as we look at this incredible job that we have here of working for the Township. Thank you for all the wonderful employees that work here. We will also think of our individuals that are on the roads, that are patrolling, our fire department, and we just pray that you'll be with them and keep them safe. We thank you for all you do for us, Lord. We reflect also our president is coming to West Michigan here this week. We pray that you keep him safe, but also all the people that serve our country at the national, state, and local level. Thank you for your blessing. Exciting seeing the library go up. Thank you again. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand and join us with saying of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. If our clerk would acknowledge.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, let the record show that all members of the Township Board are present.
All right. I hope everybody's doing well this evening. I've chosen a quote I rather like by Ronaldus Magnus, otherwise known as Ronald Reagan, one of my favorites. He said, there's been a lot of talk of late, of course, of socialism, and more so than I think I can ever recall in my lifetime. And it seems to be a foothold taking among some of our leaders, but more so among our youth. And unfortunately, I think a lot of it's in our education system. But I love this quote. Socialism only works in two places. Have you heard this one? This isn't the running out of other people's money quote. That's the common one. This is a different one. Socialism only works in two places. Heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it. Love it. That's Ronaldus Magnus. God rest his soul. Miss that guy. All right. We're going to start off tonight. Well, let's first move to the agenda, and then we're going to have Dan give us the State of the Township presentation. So is there a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Support. And moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passed. And Dan, would you take it away?
Sure. Let me turn a couple lights off here so you can see these a little better. Just want to update you on a few of the things for the Township that have for what's going on. Is that better to see it?
Yeah.
You can see the board review just finished, and so you have the time for the assessor kind of giving their report. And we had 149 appeals this time, and we only had 132 left. Cutting up for some reason, sorry. And with that, the additional appeals appeared to be related to requirement to file personal property form for businesses, an exemption form, and they were appealing that timetable, that deadline. They were allowed to do that now, and so that was the increase. And so that's the biggest change. The assessing office is busy with transfer affidavits. In 2018, there was 1,100 property transfers. 139 of those were vacant lots. So basically, that's how many people moved throughout the Township and properties that were sold and changed hands. So there's a lot of work of keeping those changes current. They also have to do a sales study, and the sales study is kind of done on a rolling 2-year period to come up with that 50% of true cash value. And of course, we're basing on historical data, so it's always going to be behind the current value depending on what's happened in the current year, but they roll up those 2 years together. From that sales study, they come up with what's called an economic condition factor, an ECF. And the reason I mentioned that is the state changed manuals. They updated the manuals, and as you can believe this, we went from 2003 to 2014. We're still 5 years behind on the manual that the state's approved, but it's a significant update. And so from that, the state gives us the values to place, for a fireplace or a bathroom, and different components of your house to determine your assessed value. and then we apply a local ECF, or economic condition factor, to base it on our current market conditions. So we have this manual from the state that we must use, and then we have to use this way to adjust it to actual market conditions. So as part of the assessing process, they had, you can see 310 field inspections of new residential homes and new dwellings and new buildings. 3,500 field inspections were part of the re-inspection program to look for things that people didn't get the permits for and that were adjusted through the year. And of course, we're going to do another 3,500 this year. We use seasonal help in the summer to kind of help with those inspections. And we have to get to every property every 5 years. And so it may seem like we were just there, but we go to every property every 5 years. Plus, if you do some construction, then we go then as well. So the whole township's kind of covered in a certain cycle. Now, all that data has to be entered. So we have, frequently 4 seasonal employees who do all the inspections. We have to then compare it to our records and make any adjustments or changes. So it's a very lengthy process just of all the data entry and data that we collect and keep and have to keep accurate for the assessing department. So, one of the results of that through the Board of Review is the taxable value. And you can see this historical taxable value, and everyone knows this was the big change in the decline of 2008 when properties dropped. So you can see the taxable value then has stayed down and created a bigger and bigger gap as we move forward. And so we were kind of on this trajectory of inflation, but you can see this is ultimately lost. Even though this is kind of catching back up, the assessed values, taxable values, what taxes are based on, is forever going to be lost. With Proposal A and that cap, you can just see the gap is expanding. So you can see our historical millage rate, and we've stayed the same for 6 years now. And this is based on a scale of 5, which is what the voters approved, but we're levying 2.75. And our taxes are still significantly lower than 3 of our neighboring communities. And just for comparison, what they pay for local taxes for the same home. This is an identical value home in each of the 4 communities. The second biggest source of revenue that we receive is revenue sharing. And between property taxes and revenue sharing, these are our most significant revenues for our general fund. And you can see that obviously it's been a good line here ever since the decline of during the recession of 2008. The sales tax collections have been very consistent. The blue is what's required to give us based on the state constitution, where we have constitutional revenue sharing. We're guaranteed that revenue, and as it's collected. So whatever is collected, we get that percentage. The statutory revenue sharing is what you hear about, that they're all doing, all the arguing you hear about in the state about revenue sharing, who's getting what and how it's going. That's all about this red portion. Okay, so when you hear about that in the news about communities complaining about not getting the revenue sharing they're hoping for, it's because they used to kind of get this number, and this is what we're getting today. So it's not about the blue. So our general fund balance, you can see, is very healthy. If you look at historically, you can see this is when we built 3 fire stations and a township office. This office was completed in 2008. Then, of course, our fund balance went up, and this was the ice arena, decline in the ice arena. Then, of course, it was kind of building up. This is Maplewood Park improvements, and then it was building back up, and this is Rosewood Park and some landscaping work, the Veterans Plaza, and the Senior Center. And now, of course, you can see the fund balance building up for some of the things that we did in the last 2 years of sales. And, of course, next year it's going to be back down in this neighborhood after the library is completed. And so that's the purpose this was raised up for this level. So you'll see the library will bring it back down to here, to the $2 million level. So you can also see that number is confirmed in our audit, which is attached in your letters and reports. If you have any questions about the finances, there's a complete financial statement there in our letters and reports. Building permits, you can see, are still staying healthy, but you can also notice that, oops, I went too far, sorry. There was a decline here, and from the first quarter of this year and last year, you can see a decline. And when you look at the history, you can see the last few years we've had a consistent decline. And so It kind of surged up here after the recession period in 2008. Everything dropped, and it's back up, and it's been kind of steady, and now we're seeing a little bit of a drop in construction. So it'll be interesting to know really long-term how that stabilizes, because obviously this is kind of the area we're used to seeing, and then it dropped, and now we're above, so we'll see if we stay in this area. There's still a lot of development occurring. You can see plats that occurred in 2018 and so far this year. It's a lot of different developments. And look at commercial projects during the time period. There's a lot of different ones you'll see. A couple to point out was, we had a lot of goals. People wanted to bring restaurants, even though there's not a lot we can do. It's fortunate you can see Lacari's was added. This is Los Amigos restaurant, and Aldi's pulled permits. This is for pulling permits, and they pulled permits. They are purchasing the Payless and building a new store in front of it, their current store. So that's their plan, and looking forward to that. So. Changing the topics on elections. So we had 3 elections in 2018, and we have 2 potentially in 2019, both school elections. The turnout for those, which is only 1 school district, so it's not the same workload. It's still a lot of work, but not the same workload. Elections overwhelm the staff with basically during the business elections, we see everyone, or close to everyone. It communicates some way or another with the township, and so it involves a lot of different work for staff coming at that time. You can see our registered voters. We're at 37,003 as of a few weeks ago. Township staff has a lot to do for elections, from processing absentee ballots, training workers. You can see scheduling all the different workers at what precincts are going to be in, creating manuals and checklists for the workers to make sure they do their job correctly, programming the poll books, delivering the election equipment to all those precincts, visiting and making sure everything's going smoothly throughout the day, and making sure that the results are done accurately. We don't want to be the story you read about in the news, and we don't want to be that community. We want things to run smoothly, and staff is doing a great job making sure that's happening here in Georgetown. It's very challenging, more than you could ever think. You might see that 30 seconds in there, you mark those ballots and you put it in the machine. It seems easy, but for a lot of people that seems somewhat complex. I'm just going to tell you that's a challenging thing, and lots of questions come up and lots of issues come up during that process. So there's a lot of training for election workers, and I'm not going to read all of this, but I want you to notice 300 election workers have to be certified. Now we're looking for 300 people who are the sharpest people that can be and are willing to work 2 days next year or this year, and 4 days next year. It's a challenge to find people who consistently will work, and we can find them for one election but not the next, and so we end up training 300 people to get certified. So if you know people who can work those dates, we're always looking for people who can perform well under that day. It's a long day, and you can just tell people are having trouble finding workers for a lot of things. Imagine trying to find 300 workers for 2 days. And to be trained. Everyone expects them to be experts on everything, right? You expect them to know everything in the precinct, and they're working literally 2 days. So if it's not their first day, at most it's their 10th. It's like picture your first 2 weeks, you got to know everything. Well, pretty much for most of the election workers, they're in their first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And we have a few veterans, but it's not that many. Some changes recently in election law that is going to affect us. Anybody can vote absentee now. You don't need a reason. So we anticipate a large increase in absentee ballots. Absentee ballots are a lot more work for us to process, but on the positive side, they can be processed ahead of the election. And so not open, but at least the interaction with the public can be handled ahead of the election. And so we're encouraging people to do so and speed up lines at the polls. So we'd like to see anyone who is interested to go ahead and get that ballot. Also, candidates for offices here don't have to have petitions anymore. They can file just pay an application fee. And you can see now we have to be open 8 hours on Saturday or Sunday. So it used to be we were open 8 to 3, I think. Yes. And so now 8 to 2. So we have to add a little time on the weekend before. So, which is fine. It's just kind of different things to the law. It's just going to cost more money, is basically what's going to happen. So as far as the local question, but hopefully it'll encourage people to participate and make it worth it. So we processed 7,000 in 2016, which was a presidential. But it's interesting now, last year we had 6,600, which was a dramatic increase in absentee ballots for a non-presidential. So in 2020, of course, now we're wondering if this trend with the new law that anybody can vote, anticipating a large increase in absentee ballots. So we're trying to prepare for that. And, but of course we won't know that until we get through the year, but we're anticipating a large increase. So basically anyone can get an absentee ballot now. So during the year, all new laptops as far as e-poll books, keeping track of their polling records for the precincts were all implemented. And you can see new voting equipment, and this is the new scanners at each precinct. So all those workers had to be trained on this new equipment and become experts for the 2-3 days that they worked. And so obviously it's a challenge on all those things, but they did a great job, and the equipment worked well, and there was no problem. So I'm going to switch over to water. I know it's kind of dramatic change there, but water is just, I like to show this, and I know it's a little bit older data, but at the time the average home spent $707 on soft drinks and only $523 in water and wastewater. Yet, you know, one's a little more important than the other, and it just shows you how dramatically inexpensive water is. And if you look at this, but people sometimes like to buy it in a small bottle, but a gallon, that's average price of $4 to $5, depending on which kind you buy. And you can see what our price is per gallon. Less than a penny. The interesting part is 25% of bottled water is actually municipal water. So, it's just interesting.
Got a pretty good profit margin.
That's a good margin there. The things that we look for and are trying to do completely is, it's basically, you'll hear about asset management, you'll hear it from the state, and what we're attempting to do, you're seeing multiple things that we're coming to you with different things we're trying to accomplish. And basically it's trying to be preventative. So you can see we want to, assess what we have, its condition. We want to rehabilitate or plan for repairs and maintenance. And then of course, there's significant financial costs. So that's what we're trying to do in our asset management is what do we have and what do we need to take care of it long term. And the reason behind that is you can see this is kind of a chart that we use, and this is made to help convince people of why we make these investments. If we don't, you do really well, and that's the little red line, you save money every year, you save money and save money, and then boom, you have a failure. And then everybody's going, what happened? Why didn't you do this? What happened? So we're trying to be the green line that stays on this. Now we're going to have our blips. It's not going to be this perfect green line, but our goal is not to have any catastrophic failures. We're trying to stay at this green line, do our maintenance, keep an eye on our system. In 2018, we used 1.8 billion gallons of water in Georgetown, 1.8 billion, and that is a 5% decrease from 2017. So, and the reason I'm going to say that's significant is all of that decrease, none of that had to do with any water saving device whatsoever. Okay, so all the water conservation you heard about, none of that. All of that decrease is rain. Okay?
Less sprinkling?
Sprinkling, less sprinkling. Okay? So there might have been one less gallon flushed, but the 5% decrease was in the summer on peak times because of rain. And that's a significant drop. It dropped 5% for a more rainy season than the previous year. So they installed 214 water meters, so we have 15,174 now. And if you recall the MTU system that we installed, the remote reading system that we installed, and this winter we found 10 leaks that we detected within days as opposed to months and months and months of them getting a water bill. Several on vacation, we caught them. We shut the water off while they were gone, and they were so happy they got back. And because we had disconnected it, we couldn't get a hold of anyone, so we disconnected it at the street and just left a note. And but they were so happy when they came back, and the water was shut off. So 10 this year, Now, recognize that brings us less revenue, but 10 happier people. And so that's a significant investment we made for the community, and particularly those 10 people are excited about it. But obviously, that brings us less revenue for the time. And that's not a very good picture, so I want to show it to you very well. But that is a sewer line, and after repairs, it looks like this. And so that's what we want to do. This, if you look at a manhole, as part of our preventive maintenance program, you can see this is a leak. And so this manhole has to be repaired. And so that's the investment we're making. We're basically treating this water coming into our system. And so that's what we're trying to prevent. And so it's not, make sure you understand, it's not leaking out. It's leaking in. This is the sanitary sewer. So we don't want to treat that rainwater. And so that's why we're doing all this televising. You can see, and we're also inspecting our sump pumps, because we don't want to treat rainwater there. This is one of the damages. We want to prevent any backups. And this is one of the main culprits, is someone hooks their sump pump right to the sewer instead of to outside. This is one of the leading causes for backups. So that's why we're trying to prevent that. So between lift station failure and sump pumps, those are the two things that we're trying to protect. Edson Drive, we installed sewer last year. So that was a significant investment in the township on Edson Drive. They're finishing up this spring. Those residents suffered a long time. It was a long construction project, and they were very patient. And the sewer is ending completed. There's still restoration that has to occur. The cemetery. This is always interesting if you look at graves sold. So we had our biggest year ever of selling lots. And so that's a lot of great burial rights sold. You can see 243. So the question is this a new trend, or is it just making up for the drop we had in 2017? You know, we went from here to here and now up to here. So it'd be interesting if this turns into a trend. There are changes you're seeing in people of what they're doing as far as cremations. You're seeing different things occurring. So it'll be interesting for the future. We still have a large inventory of cemetery lots available. Now, the number of the actual burials, you can see is more consistent. And you can see that, we've also had had the most number of burials this year. So this, again, is a question of whether we're seeing a slight trend here of this steady increase. It's still a relatively low number compared to our population, but it's just interesting if it does become a trend. Our parks, we didn't do a lot of improvements this year, but you can see the parks have been for maintenance and keeping in good shape. There's lots of activities that took place. The splash pads, stay hopping, are very popular. The slip and slide event was well attended. And of course, music in the park put on by the chamber. And so you can see lots of different activities that took place. And it's nice that the chamber put on, and then City to Shore did the slip and slide. So it's nice when we have that involvement from the community in our parks. GT Connections for our senior center, introducing lots of new and different activities. Some of those activities, whether you find them all interesting, but some are popular and less popular, but you can see from cooking demonstrations, some new musical groups coming in, an architectural tour, an airport tour, a different theater. I like the last one there, something to kind of help this particular group that seems very vulnerable to some internet scams, trying to educate our citizens so they don't become victims from computer scams. The little pop-ups, click here, and cause the trouble. So if you look at the average users per month for activities, you can see the activities are going up slightly, where the membership is going down slightly. So of course, you're in a group where there's always going to be a change in membership and other factors. And you can also see the meals drop slightly. This is the average meal attendees per month. So it's not per meal, it's per month. So you add the month together of how many people had meals. So that's the average. And if you look at transportation, the number of our actual riders has declined, but yet the rides are steady or a little bit higher. And so, but yet the number of actual riders that are registered is declining. And if you look at our fleet for the transportation, you see we have 6 buses, and the board's given us direction. Our goal is to, after if one gets replaced this year for replacement, that these 2 will both be sold. Well, one new and replaced old to have an end of fleet with 5. So instead of replacing this in 21, the goal is to have only 5 at the end of this year. I know the board gave us that direction, and we can easily do it with the capacity that we're doing for the ride. So the idea is to become a little more efficient, as opposed to raising costs as much, to become a little more efficient with a smaller fleet. And we have to get permission from the state to shrink the fleet, and that's the plan as soon as this bus arrives that we're replacing here. So the fire department, I'm not going to do all of you just heard a talk on the fire department. I just didn't want to not mention them. Here they are, busy in a parade, but parades are not all we have these vehicles for. So it's important to remember that. And but you know, you have this equipment, you're hoping you're not going to use it, but you never know where you're going to have to be. That's a crick. And I'm sorry about the quality of the photo on the screen here, but that is a crick. That car is in a ditch. And so you can see them working there, and having to have the equipment for different situations. And of course, you heard about the oil leak on some tributaries toward the Grand River, coming into the Grand River, and of course, who do they call upon to help stop this? You call upon the fire department, because they have the equipment available, so they're out there as the first line to get out there. And then of course, you know, Young's Environmental comes and does the long term, but you know, who comes out there that day to track things down and find out the problem? It's the fire department. So like I said, you have equipment you hope is only used in the parade, but unfortunately it's not. So WTET. This is just a history of their funding. I know some questions have come through time, but I wanted to point out this is our PEG funding that we give to WCET each year. And I want you to realize how we're collecting less PEG funding, and so they're receiving less money. And I'm assuming this, since our population is growing, I'm assuming this is a symptom of cord cutting. And, you know, this is kind of a trend, and I know people in this room even have cut the cord to, you know, no longer have cable TV. So it'll be interesting if this happens and how to proceed as people have streaming options to get their media. The library. 17% increase you can see of items borrowed. And there's a breakdown between digital, print, and audio as far as the breakdown. So what type of materials they're borrowing. Library visits were up 10%. And of course, this is done by the little counter, and so that counter is not perfect, but they go by what the counter is and hope that whatever consistency or inconsistency stays from year to year. So it'll be interesting as they change buildings and change counters, how that works and changes. The digital collection saw a 14% increase in the amount of materials, up to 24,000 items in our catalog. And we had 54,000 items were used for a 25% increase. So it is growing. Everything's, you know, growing in use. So programming, we saw a 79% increase in participants. And you can see summer reading with a 54% increase. And the programs offered, but those participants are higher because the number of programs we offered were higher. And so you can see it was a significant increase in the program from 2017. Now with the construction, 2019 is going to be a little bit challenging in this to offer the program, but it's nice to see the items happening. Some new things: increased print online marketing, community outreach to seniors and students, and some new programs, of course, we just talked about. And we changed quite a few policies, more policies, and of course, NOCAT, things that you approved for the year. So, what to expect in 2019? Continuing that community outreach, more partnerships with local businesses and organizations, and more programming, of course, and of course, the new library. And that's the most significant thing we're doing as far as our budget this year. And you can see as of today, and of course, if you want to see more directly, you can look out the window. But that is our library as of today. You can see the work. They're shingling right here. Today they're starting, and they're just putting the metal roof on this part. So And the last thing, just as a picture of our website, just to notice, we have this news and announcement. We're trying to put more items out here. Like there's a thing going on right now on social media that you have to file your PRE. It's not true. They don't expire. Something about it's expiring. You can get caught without a tax break. Click here. Don't do it. You don't have to. People can sign up for this. It's kind of similar to a blog, but they can sign up and get an email notice whenever there's a new item there that's available. And if any of the board members, if you want to put information out there, there's something you want to read about or hear about, or you want to write something for there, we can also put that here as well. And so, and communicate to that list. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan.
It's about the 10 people that were notified about their excessive water usage because of the MTUs. How many did we catch the year before? This is a new thing?
Yes, it's new for us to catch them. We've caught the year before, but I don't really have good data. It's like 1 or 2 here, but we didn't have, when I'm talking about the 10, it's caught with days as opposed to a longer time period before.
Right. Sump pump, can we get that picture on the Facebook page and on the website?
Sure.
Yeah, just to let people, some people might have it not even know, see the picture, go, oops.
Sure.
Yeah, right. I'm going to change that real quick before, right? I'm not going to call the township for it,
sure,
but just proactive with it since we got a website.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, that's well worth doing. Yep. And then I did have a question too. I refilled my hot tub. Hopefully I'm not in that range where it prorates my sewer usage last week. But what's our acceptable range for chlorine, pH, and alkalinity? Because I did notice it was chlorine was I think 1.5 parts per million. pH was high, it was like 8.4 parts per million.
Well,
alkalinity was about right, about 120.
You know, you have different, you have standards that we have to meet. And of course, the water's treated by Wyoming.
Yep.
We meet those standards. If you want the specific levels, we put out this consumer confidence report. I can show it to you, and it can show all the levels of what ours was for the year. And we do it. It's on our website under the water page, consumer confidence report, and it will show you all the breakdowns of what our water levels are at. So the chlorine you're mentioning, I don't think it's anywhere near that overall. So it's interesting the reading you found. So.
Yeah, and I think it could be because we're on the cul-de-sac too. I don't think it would stub in there. It should be a loop, but I want to. And sometimes you turn on the faucet and it smells chlorine. Other times it doesn't. So
yes, you have different levels based on the time of the year as well.
Yep.
And so what's in the lake and what we're treating for.
So piggybacking on something Michael said about the picture of the sump pump, do you think it would be wise to post just a PowerPoint presentation? I know that you add a lot in your context in what you say, but
I think it needs the illustration to go with it. But
for it to make sense to people. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was glad to see he moved in position. I know John, you mentioned that too. Perhaps they'll be able to produce something through WCET or otherwise to
certainly
to allow people who didn't see it to be able to see it. So, all right. Thank you. Excellent. Always learn something. More than one something. All right, item 7, communication letters and reports received for information. Item 8, public comment for actions remaining on the agenda. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to any of the agenda items tonight? I know we've got someone from ASO, Tracy, who will be speaking later, but Don or anyone else wish to address the board? All right, seeing none. Item number 9, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
I'd like to pull a couple items from it.
Sure. Identify, please.
9.6 and 9.7, just to get some, I guess, explanations of them, a little clarification.
We'll make those items 11A and 11B. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Any other comments? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carol, we did have someone who, in your place, was able to say second or support.
Okay.
So it worked out. We hesitated for a while.
I can do that for you, Carol.
All right. Item 10, zoning ordinance amendments. Someone wish to make a motion?
I will make that, excuse me, I'll make the motion to adopt the staff report as finding of facts and to approve the resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. I'd like to start this with Rich, perhaps, as our Planning Commission liaison and member to give a little bit of background.
This is the, these two items, 10 and 11, go together, but 10 has to come first, and that is simply to change wording in that amendment. If you looked at it, basically we're adding the phrase student dormitories, and if you looked at the minutes of the Planning Commission, another thing we have is the student dormitory shall be located within 1 mile of a college or university. And so that's what we're voting on, those changes, or I should say those additions to the current ordinance as it stands.
How close, by the way, is this location on Pierce Street to, I presume, Grand Valley? Is it?
It's the old Brian's bookstore.
Okay,
Which
yeah.
is just on the edge of the campus.
Okay, clearly within the 1 mile.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Throw a rock
absolutely.
into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Wow, all right, that's a high density area there. Anyone, any comments? Anyone wish to add anything? Okay, seeing none, could you take the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Schwam.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Mr. Wieringa.
Yes.
Mrs. Stolma.
Yes.
Mr. Manier.
Yes.
Mr. Bosch.
Yes.
Carried.
All right, and as Rich pointed out, item 11 it goes hand in hand here. Would someone like to make a motion regarding that rezoning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to rezone ordinance in reference to 2019-03 to change from neighborhood service, which it is currently, to high-density residential on the parcel which I just alluded to on Pierce Street, which is the old Brian Books
Support.
location.
Moved and supported. Comments? Questions?
This is a high-density residential area to begin with. If you look at it, it's within the land use map, our land use map. And so when you look at the land use map, you'll see that this is directly connected to high-density residential, but it happened to be neighborhood service because it was a bookstore.
All right. So, clerk, we can call the roll?
Are we ready to call the roll?
Look and saw.
Mr. Bosch?
Yes.
Mr. Manier?
Yes.
Mrs. Stolma?
Yes.
Mr. Wieringa? Clerk votes yes. Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
Carried.
All right, item 11A, approval of the lease amendment for additional space at 6701 Bridgeport. And since it's been removed from item 9, made a separate item unto itself, separate motion would be in order. So motion to approve? So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported, all right. Comments, questions? This is, by the way, one of our towers that we used to own, and you had a question or comment
Yeah,
about
it looks like it's over at Rush Creek Park. And what are they looking to add? Is it an extension? Is it a new lease? I just saw the number of $200 a month, which is extremely low. I just wanted some clarification on it.
I understand they co-located, as they call it, an additional device there, and we get a certain percentage, but Dan,
Well, this is to put a little generator on a pad right next to the tower. So that's basically what they're looking to do, is have it just outside for the generator.
but to facilitate,
The generator next to the tower. That's what they're trying to accomplish right here. And so that's why you have a little bit of additional lease for space.
Oh, so this isn't actually on the tower itself. This is actual physical land.
Yes, to get right next to the tower.
What's the size they're looking for?
I don't have the size, but it's pretty small.
it's within
I
their
can see it
footprint
maybe.
though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Their footprint.
It's just adjacent where there's a current generator. Different towers have different companies. They have their own equipment.
Sure, but do we own the dirt underneath this?
They own the dirt underneath it.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, so to me, I mean, depending on the size, it seems like it'd be pretty significant. I mean, they're adding to the overall footprint. If it's 10 by 10, $200 a month seems like a bargain. Well, 400 we get half.
400 we get half, correct. So we've done others for less than this even, so, where they just need to have a generator on a pad and next to it.
I'd like to know what size they're looking for and see, do we have a print or anything, or what they're, I mean, we gotta have something, I would imagine.
Well, they'll give it all of that if, you know, obviously we'll have to finalize all those documents if we're willing to do this. So, I mean, they will put it where we want and work with what we want, but yes, that's where it starts, but yes. The attachments will be finalized as part of this before we sign. So, but if you want something different as the board, we can do whatever you like, so.
I personally would just like to see aerial view of what they're looking for.
Okay.
And how big, 10 by 10, 10 by 20, 20 by 40, I mean, it all makes a big difference. And how, the proximity to where our residents use the park,
It'll be right
all
next
that
to the
factors
tower.
in,
Yes.
so.
Yes, it'll be right adjacent to the tower, so.
And there's also not necessarily just this particular item, but is there, how do we keep track of, so say, I'm not saying that they would, but since we get half, they negotiate a lease, how do we know the fair market price? Do we get any kind of, are we in that discussion at all, or is it just, we're getting 200, you get 200, and, okay.
We certainly can be in the discussion because we have to agree to whatever our terms are for this. If it's on the tower, we don't have to agree to it then. I mean, they can just do that if it's on the tower itself. And of course, the people paying it know that we have this right too, so they're going to want to make sure we are aware of it as well. So, because we have that in the book, that's the only guarantee is that both know that we're supposed to get it. So, but yes, this is something different with a little bit of extra land. We have done it on other locations for even less than this, so that's why it's here before you today at this rate. So. But if you want something different, if you want to picture what they want first, that's all fine.
I personally would just be a lot more comfortable.
Sure.
To know about what we're selling for $200 a month, and whether it's a great deal or not a great deal, or just don't know.
Okay. So is it fair market value just based on what you have experienced here with our other leases?
Well, I mean, if you look at, I mean, you're right. It's the size, and we're talking about if it's a 12 by 12. For $400 a month is a pretty good rent for a 12 by 12 with no access to it. But it's whatever you think is fair and reasonable, and we want these things to work when there's no power, so we're that side of our responsibility to the community as well, because people want their cell phone coverage, and during emergency situations, and so that's the kind of we looked at in the past, saying, hey, with these generators in here, we don't want to be the roadblock to technology in our community. So, but if you think the rent's too low, we certainly can ask for more, or if you need more information, like a picture exactly what they want. I mean, the current plan is if you guys approved it, we would go there and do a drawing and saying, hey, okay, that's not right, or this is right, and we work with our parks person and get the right spot. But their engineer and our parks person would kind of get together to help define the location, but we can have that done first. It's fine.
Mr. Chairman, we have precedents for this, plus some of them that for less than the 200 a month. Therefore, I would, when we vote, I'll be voting in favor.
Same.
Anyone else?
I would agree with that.
I also, yes.
Okay, we nearly took a roll call right there, Rich, but go ahead and call the roll.
I don't think we need to
All right.
unless you want to.
Well, we won't call it then.
Okay.
I think everyone's pretty well on record right there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. All right, now we've got item 11B. Approval to authorize the superintendent to initiate the 60-day cancellation process of the Mishway lease. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Supported. Dan, I see, is rising to his feet.
Many years ago, a state program initiated funding to encourage competitors for internet use. And so you had this wireless providers to provide internet to compete with the ground, to try to create competition. And so the state provided grants, or at least backed grants, to encourage this type of business. The township, also wanting to participate in this, granted access to our water tower and this location, 36 fire station, our ice arena, and our former senior center, and as well as our other fire stations for service. As part of that, we received free internet. Okay, so we were getting free internet for use of our tower. Well, as technology changed, the reliability of the internet and the speeds of the internet were not adequate to meet our needs. So at first we dropped it here because we needed more reliability, and we used it just for our wireless. Then we dropped it at our fire stations for consistency and switched several years later. And of course, when we built the senior center, we switched with the new senior center to a more reliable carrier. And then last year with the selling of the ice arena, that was our last one on it, and we were only using it there for the free Wi-Fi for the public. Okay, so we are no longer using the free internet or getting our benefit from the lease. So the lease has a 2-month clause where we have to notify them. And we've been trying to talk to them about, after meeting with the finance, we're trying to talk to them about shifting to a rental arrangement, if they're interested, where they would rent that space on the tower, if they'd like. But that negotiations hasn't gone anywhere. We're not even sure if they have any customers on the system. But we would like to see the clause of the lease be initiated so that we can at least be able to talk to them and notify them that they can't use it anymore for free. And essentially that would be what you're starting here. You're starting this 2-month clock or 60-day clock of notifying them of the end of the lease. Our hope is that we would turn around and get a small lease payment commensurate with the number of customers they have, which we don't know. So, but it's up to you. We're looking for your direction. Right now they're not paying anything, and they're using a space similar to what we charge significant amounts to cell phone companies to use. So.
Thank you, Dan.
Questions for Dan or comments to the board?
My question would be is, when I went to that finance meeting and then the finance committee agreed to just reach out to them. We didn't reach out to them yet?
We have. We've
They
reached
just
out.
got responding?
Right.
Okay. That meeting was what, last Wednesday?
We reached out to them prior to the meeting, a little bit of what's going on. And then after the meeting, once, yeah.
I reached out to him 2 weeks ago. Finally got a call back late Friday after that. They're going to reassess the lease, look at what our tower is what they're saying.
We at least want to find out how many customers they have, if any, that are using it.
And that's why I wondered what's
piece.
the reason to start with, the cancellation if we haven't, given a fair chance to talk to us yet.
I guess the basis is that through the finance committee, and our recommendations is that they shouldn't be able to use the public asset for free. And so we're letting them, essentially putting them on notice that free is ending.
Right, at the finance committee, there was nobody said, we've contacted them, they haven't gotten back yet. It was, we'll reach out to them.
Okay.
So that's why I'm confused.
Okay.
I'm hearing something different. Like, oh no, we contacted 2 weeks ago.
No.
But I think if they called, they're ready to talk. So I'd say before we go and initiate, tell them, hey, we're going to boot you. That's a negotiation tactic. Like,
it's a negotiation tactic, certainly. But that's the intent is that you don't get to use a township asset for free. Like any other business that's using it, they should have to compensate the taxpayers for use of that township asset.
I just think we should touch base with them first before we start playing hardball.
Okay.
And I thank Rod for reaching out to him beforehand. Quid pro quo is ended though, so no freebies. Any other comments? Anybody? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign.
Aye.
It is carried. All right, Tracy. Is that right, Tracy? It's your opportunity.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight. I appreciate you allowing me a few minutes. My name is Tracy Alvarez. I am currently the Regional Commissioner for our AYSO program in this wonderful community. I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself. I stepped in this role about a year ago now, and a lot of changes have been made since I stepped in, and I'm really excited about that. And I just wanted to basically just tell you where we're at with this great program and just let you know that it is kind of going along with Dan's presentation that we are growing as well. So I just wanted to kind of give you some numbers and let you know where we're at. So AYSO's nonprofit. We are Georgetown, and that includes Denison, Hudsonville, and Zeeland areas. We have players from all of those. We currently have 16 people on our board of directors. So that has grown from the 7 that we had a year ago, which is awesome. We've got a lot of new parents and people that are willing to step up and help this program. We currently have, as of right now, our spring season is going to start on, our first games are the week of April 22nd. We have 1,476 players registered today. That is for spring. In the fall, it's a little bit higher, just because it depends on what the high school sports are doing and where the kids, the boys and the girls seasons are. In the fall, we had almost 1,700 kids. So we anticipate that with the growing community that we have and the little ones coming up, that we're going to grow too. With that, though, we went from about 150 volunteers to almost 350 over the past year. Nobody's paid in this program, including myself. So we have grown. I don't know if you remember, but we were in the Memorial Day parade last year. We're doing that again this year. The turnout wasn't as what we hoped last year, but we got a great float this year. We've got all sorts of things that we're going to be reaching out to the community for. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that where we're at. We also background check at our expense every single volunteer at $25 a person. So we pay for that expense. We don't ask our coaches and our assistant coaches and our board members to do that. We pay for that as a region. So again, funding, we have a lot of income coming in from registration. We're going to reach out to some local businesses to try to get some sponsorships and things like that. Dixon Granville has been great to help us out with those things. But I just kind of wanted to let you know that our local fields right now, if you don't know, I'm sure you do, that are on the Port Sheldon Sports Complex, we share it with Hudsonville Little League and Georgetown Little League. Parking can be hard at times. So we have actually I reached out to both of them, and we've been meeting on a regular basis to try to figure out how to schedule our games during the seasons differently so we can all have a different way of working things. In past years, I don't think that has been done. So they were pretty excited about that, and we're trying to work out a good way to kind of use the space we have. We also do use Parkwood Church on 28th Avenue there. I live right across the street from there, so it's very convenient for us to run some of our smaller divisions in their area. So over the I'm in this role for 3 years. I signed up for 3 years. Loving it, doing great with it. We have a great board, and our goal is to reach out to more of the churches and the area businesses just to see if we can find some more space to kind of spread out through the community. Right now, I can tell you that we have 317 kiddos on a wait list. Wow. That's for spring, and that's because we don't have the space. We have a lot of kids that are very interested in this program. We run a very efficient program. There's a lot of room for improvement, and that's what my goals are for the next few years. But just with that wait list, it is obviously there's potential to grow. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself, let you know who we are, let you know how big our program is getting, and that we are looking out to the community for more space. Any help that you guys might have towards helping us out, looking for some things, we definitely have the potential to grow. So that's all I wanted to do is just let you know who I am and introduce my program and see if you had any questions or anything.
Well, Tracy, certainly in the process of looking for your other places to grow and so on, if you have questions the township can answer, be sure to contact one of us. And
thank you.
We're here to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Be of help to you.
Yeah, we are. I believe it was you that said Rush Creek. We do have our older divisions use Rush Creek Park. We have goals set up there. We have goals set up at Woodcrest. We have goals set up at Pioneer Park. So we have all over the place. The issue with that is because they're public parks, we're not able to designate a time frame for certain things, and we know that, so we're trying to be a little bit more flexible with that. So we're just kind of looking, churches, and as I grow in this position, I wanted to reach out to you and I've been living in Jenison for 22 years. So when I got in this position, it was kind of a, wow, this keeps growing and there's just more stuff that's added. And then I got involved in soccer, and we have an amazing community. We really do. So I think this is one of the things that our community is big on. And I may reach out to you because I don't know what's Georgetown property and what's not and how we do this. Rod has been an amazing help for me, too. So I just wanted to say thank you and let you know that we're going to be growing, too.
Great. Great. Thank you to you for all the hours that you put in and the other folks. I mean, it's wow, that's quite a job, but thank you. And all those little kiddos, that's amazing.
Yeah, we offer a playground program for the 3-year-olds all the way up to age 14 right now. Usually when they hit middle school, they kind of veer off to other sports and other things. But, I mean, our 7U and 8U divisions, which are 7 and 8-year-olds, is our largest, and we have almost 175 teams total. Our program.
That's amazing.
So I just wanted to let you know that, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks so much.
You figure out how many juice boxes that is? Oh my goodness.
We just opened a concession stand a year ago, and we actually partnered with Sprinkles and Bigby.
Oh, yeah.
So they are helping us, and we go through more donuts than you could ever imagine.
My 11th year coaching ASO, believe it or not. I counted them up the other day, sort of spread out over time.
That's good you're working on the parking, because we've had grandkids and, the parking's a problem. Yeah.
And largely after 11 years buying into the philosophy, but, the no keeping score thing, I still struggle with. I'll have my kids in the huddle last day. Now, kids, we don't keep score, but we're down 3-2, and we've got to get the goals is 5 periods. All right. Thank you, Tracy. This time, second public comment period. Anyone wish to step forward and address the board? Yes, Mr. Cade.
Hello, John Cade, 7869 Parkside Court. At the last meeting, you talked about biofilters, and I was under the impression that you were going to have somebody here this evening to discuss them or discuss the location. I was just wondering what happened.
Fair enough. There's been conversation with that particular landholder who's here the last meeting, and we're just giving it more time to see if something might be resolved. So thank you.
It'll be on a future agenda.
It's been adjourned at least till the next meeting. See how things go. Yep, you bet. Thanks for following up. Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the second public comment period. Any discussion among the board? Any general information anyone wishes to share?
I had a question about status of 200 Baldwin.
Yeah, good. So there's been discussion about that, and there was a request I think you were privy to at the Finance Committee meeting. You can better summarize it, Dan, I suppose, than I can, but.
And the buyer we haven't closed yet, and the buyer is looking to purchase a smaller parcel, and brought that to the Finance Committee, and there was no interest there at the Finance Committee of subdividing it again for this particular use and then selling off without a plan for the whole parcel. And so I've notified them, and we haven't heard yet back that we're not interested in renegotiating the location for this deal. And so he hasn't come back with anything anyway, but I don't know his final response because they still complete the purchase. So we don't know yet. So that's why I haven't told you more. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. And I would say to those who weren't here at that meeting that the piece they would have left us would be less desirable. Let's put it that way. So. Anything else? What else? I wanted to say I really appreciate those audit statements when we get those each year. I mean, sunlight's the best disinfectant. We've got a great staff, obviously, and they do things by the book. But it's great to have an outside third party who is coming to look at it and look for every jot and tittle and see if there's things that are out of whack. And I appreciate their verification. They say, you know what, you're meeting GAP standards and then some. So that's good. Good. All right. Is there anyone else? Yes?
Just Tracy's enthusiasm is contagious. You're very excited. I agree with Carol, though. We're concerned about traffic flow down there and parking. We do get people to question us on that. So, seems like you're on top of it, though.
Well, I think that we are now. I think that the lack of communication working with everybody just in that space has been previous to me. So, with my help and my board's help, we have little meetings with everybody. All on the same page. Something needs to happen. Not quite sure how that is going to work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Support, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.